Welcome to Garden Web 601 MELS add-on. We are so glad that you are here, Dr. Robin Hamilton and Dr. Jamal Crawford. We are so glad to have you here on this Tuesday night, January 23rd, for class number 3 already. Time does fly when you are having fun. So, and we're having a ton of fun and so good getting to know you all. And we've just enjoyed our time with you so much. I am putting up the PowerPoint. If you cannot see the PowerPoint, please let me know that you're not seeing the PowerPoint. Just unmute and say, hey, we don't see the PowerPoint. So this is MELS 601, January 25th, class 3. Our meeting norms and protocols, and these are all important as well when you are establishing PLCs and a part of your PLC research to have those meeting norms and protocols. And please remember to take good care of yourself. Please try to get plenty of sleep, have healthy meals, exercise, take care of your mental, emotional, and spiritual care, and also make sure that you are staying connected in meaningful relationships with those that you love. It is so easy in these days when we can't get together like we'd like to go and do things, and those relationships can slip. So make sure that you're maintaining those relationships that are important to you. So tonight's introduction and brag, we did collapse some of our Zoom teams after drop add. And so we missed Jocelyn last week because her internet was coming in and out. And then we added Nari and LaKenya to Zoom team number 1. So we want to give these 3 friends the opportunity to do their introduction and brag this week. So if they'll go ahead and do that. And then next week, we'll go ahead with Zoom team 2. That used to be Zoom team 3. But now it is Zoom team 2. And I do believe that all 3 of these friends are on the call. And so whoever wants to go first, just unmute and go first. Jocelyn, Nari, or LaKenya.
I'll go first.
Thanks, Nari.
No problem. I mean, like, I feel like things are getting easier, if that makes sense.
Oh, good.
Now that I've done the first task, it doesn't seem so hard, I guess.
Yay.
And I'm getting more and more excited by the help that I'm getting, because my biggest concern is, how do I get 80 hours in before April plus teaching? So I'm just, the little things that I'm doing, and I can see I'm going like this. If that makes sense.
And brag on yourself.
Yeah.
Brag on yourself.
I don't really have anything about, well, you know what? To be honest, I'll brag on myself.
Thank you.
We are going over data right now, and I knew this before, but it was confirmed today that my scores for math are always like really, really high. I enjoy math. I really enjoy what I teach. So good scores. That's about the only brag I got. I mean, I don't have a personal brag right now. I don't.
But doesn't that feel good to have good scores?
Yeah, my son just turned 17.
Woo! Yay! Life is just getting ready to begin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, have fun with it.
All right.
Congrats. That's awesome. LaKenya or Jocelyn, who wants to go next?
I'll go because I may lose connection.
Okay, this is Jocelyn. She couldn't go last week because of connection.
This is me. I live in the mountains. So if you see me constantly pop in and pop out of meetings, y'all, I'm doing my best, but high-speed internet is not a thing on this end of the state. So just know.
Where are you, Jocelyn?
What's that?
Where are you?
I am the furthest west county in the state. So I'm in Cherokee County. And we border Tennessee and Georgia. So just know, like, I'm at school and my internet will cut out. So just know that. I teach high school band. There's actually a band in our gym right now. We're doing pep band tonight, and I had somebody covering for me so I can come over here to my office and hang out with you guys for an hour. And I'm a lead teacher, kind of doing like assistant principal things at the high school level. And I love high school. I taught in the middle school for 13 years as well, but moved over here full time this past year. My personal brag is, I think, well, I mean, it's kind of a burn too, but Ellen DeGeneres during the shutdown featured the band that I teach. So I was on the Ellen show. Oh no, it's not really a good thing. It was actually for like a remote fail, but it was really funny. I just posted a video to make my kids laugh because we tried to do like everybody plays at home. Well, you can imagine with slow internet in the mountains how that went, and it sounded like a hot garbage train wreck. And Ellen picked it up off of YouTube and featured it on her show. So I was proud, even though it's like learn to laugh at yourself, I guess, you know?
That's
So
right.
that's my
Don't take
brag.
yourself too seriously ever.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Now, Scaly Mountain, where is that? Is that in your county?
Smoky Mountain. No, it's like an hour east of here. My aunt works in Jackson County, so it's not too far away.
Jackson. Oh, I said Scaly Mountain. So that's Jackson County.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. And we take I'm from Shelby, which is in the foothills. And grew up going to Tweetsy Railroad. If there's one thing I want to do before I die, and that is drive the Tweetsy Railroad. That's one thing I need to do.
Yeah.
And so I take my grandchildren, and we've been going every year that they've had their Christmas train. And it's interesting because you still see antennas on houses. And they'll say, what is that on the house? Well, it's an antenna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. So yeah. So we're glad you're with us.
Thanks.
All right. And LaKenya, your turn. An introduction and a brag.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am a school counselor, and I'm originally from Florida. I moved here about 5 years ago. I've been in counseling for quite a long time, almost maybe 15 years. And I recently switched school districts, and it's definitely an adjustment. However, I would say one of my brags would be, because if any of you know, when you go into I work at a really high need school. So when working at these schools, it's easy to get caught, in a trap of identifying things that are not done. And so at our my school counselor's PLC, we started something new today, and that's like getting structure so that we all can, actually focus. So it was something that we all were excited about, the things that we are going to do, and just happy that I made that initiative for that PLC, as well as our PLC that has social workers in it, because again, working in a very high need school, it's really easy to get caught up just doing and going, but then the documentation is the part where they struggle. And so for me, we have to have structure so that we can see what we're doing. We'll have evidence of what we're doing. So I was happy about that.
Well, that's so good. And you're right. You can get caught up in the doing, can't you?
Yes.
You really, really can. So thank you for that. Thank you. So welcome to all of you. We're glad you're here. Now I'm back to my PowerPoint. If you cannot see it, please unmute and say, hey, we can't see the PowerPoint. So important dates and Zoom links. Class is every Tuesday with the exception of spring break, which is March 14th. And then we do have a coaching session again this Thursday, January 27th at 7 p.m. And then one again the following Thursday, February 3rd. And then our last one will be on March 3rd. So please put that on your calendar. We do contact you via Garden Web email. We do post announcements and information in the Garden Web email Blackboard. Make sure that you check your Garden Web email, and everything from this week will be uploaded under week 3 of your Blackboard. And then also I'm going to go back to my Blackboard right here. And then in Blackboard, just please remember that when you go to Blackboard, when you go up like by your name and you download that, and then you go right here where it has like the little paper and the check. And if you can't see this, please unmute and let me know. Then you'll go right there and you'll see your grades. And we have provided feedback to everyone for the grades that you have uploaded. And so if you don't see that, please let us know so that we can assist you with that. And then in addition to that, your uploaded grades does have an attachment to it. And so you need to be able to go in and do the attachment. It is in Word, and you do have comments on the Word document. So you need to go in so that you can view those Word document comments. So what is due this week? Well, your APSL Task 1 revisions are due this week. You have submitted your APSL Task 1. Your peer reviews were due by tonight, and back to your Gardner Web in your Blackboard. When you go to Blackboard, and you go to APSL Task for Review, you would drop your information into there. So that's there. And then when you did your completed peer reviews, you went to Tasks for Review. You go to your teammates discussion board so that you can reply to your teammates so that they can see the information that you gave them. So if I gave Dr. Crawford feedback, I would go to Tasks for Review. I would find Dr. Crawford's name, and I would upload under Task 1 for peer and instructor review. I would go back to Dr. Crawford's thread, and I would upload my feedback to him in his thread. And then I would take my feedback to Dr. Crawford. And please tell me if you cannot see my screen. I would take my feedback to Dr. Crawford, and then I would go to the APSL completed peer review Dropbox, and I would say Task 1 peer review. I would put it up there, and that is where I get my grade for reviewing Dr. Crawford's work. And then let's just say that I reviewed Stephen's work. So then what I would do is I would go back to, I would do the template. I would go back to Task for Review. I would pull up Stephen's Task 1. I would put his work back in Stephen's thread. And then once I've given Stephen the feedback, then I would go back to APSL completed peer review Dropbox, peer review number 2, and I would upload it there so that I could get a score for doing both peer reviews at that time. Now, this week, you will make corrections to your APSL assignment assignment Task 1. And so you're going to base those corrections based on what you've learned. You're going to base those revisions based on the revisions that I've given you. You're going to base those revisions based on the revisions that your peers have given you. You're going to go to the APSL assignment Dropbox, and you're going to go to APSL Task 1 Final for evaluation, and you will submit that there. So that is where you will submit that. Also this week, you will be submitting your APSL Task 2 draft. So you'll go back to APSL Task for Review, and you will go to APSL Task 2 for peer and instructor review, and the whole process starts again. So it's this cumulative process of going back and forth. So that's what you'll be doing. We do ask that your peer reviews are in by class on Tuesday night, and that either your rough draft for the new task or your revisions for the previous one turned in are due no later than Sunday evening. The earlier you get them in, the better, because that is the earlier that we can provide feedback to you as well. We did have to make some revisions to the Zoom team schedules. I've sent that out to everyone, and everyone should have gotten that, and you should be fine with that at this point. So task 1 was submitted last Sunday, and then you did get feedback from me. You should have feedback from your peers, and then any revisions will be submitted as we discussed just a few minutes ago when we were looking in Blackboard. So that is what all is due and what was due. Are there any questions about what was due and what is due this Sunday night? If so, please unmute and ask at this time.
I have a question.
Okay, Stephen.
So I didn't submit my peer reviews that I did in the correct place. Should I go back and do that now?
Yes.
Well, the class.
Yes. Yes. And I think you're one of the ones that I think you submitted. I could be wrong, but I think you submitted to like your peers thread. So like if you, I don't remember who you did it to, but let's say you did it to Daryl. So I think you submitted like to his thread, but then you didn't submit it to the peer review Dropbox. And I tried to write a note that said, please remember to submit to your peer review Dropbox. So yes, go back in. So right now, everyone should have 301 points. You should have 100. You should have 1 point for putting in your contact information. You should have 100 points for your APSL Task 1 draft, and you should have submitted 2 peer reviews in 4 places. You should have submitted your peer reviews to each of your peers in the discussion thread, and you should have submitted your peer reviews in the, and please again tell me if you cannot see this because Zoom is just doing some weird things. You should have submitted to both of your peers in their discussion thread, and then you'll go to your APSL completed peer review Dropbox. And the first peer that you did, you'll put right there to peer review 1, and the second one, peer review 2. And this is where you actually get your grade from. So you should have 301 points right now in your grades. And if not, submit it. Thanks for asking that. I appreciate it, Stephen.
No problem.
Anybody else? Okay, let's roll on to resources and reminders. And again, if you can't see my screen, please let me know. So the you want to maintain the integrity of the APSL template. So I am now in Blackboard. I am sharing my screen. If you can't see it, let me know. Under APSL template and materials, you're going to go to the APSL template right here. And on the APSL template, which I may have already downloaded, I did. The APSL template, you're going to go right there. And this is where you're going to put your work. Now, you are going to leave the description in single space. You're going to leave the instructions in single space. You're going to leave the prompt 1 in single space. You're going to only have these 3 headings. These are the only 3 headings you're going to have in task 1, prompt 1. PLC research, selection, and meeting. PLC is an acronym, and that's going to be capitalized. Because of APA 7th, research will be lowercase, selection is going to be lowercase, and meeting is going to be lowercase. Also notice that school profile, that goes before your task 1. School profile, that's where your school profile goes. The first word school is capitalized, the second word profile is lowercase, and you will remove the yellow highlighting on each of those. So that is the way, and that is what you will do right there. You do that template is the template that you want for your work. The APSL helpful hints, that is also in the Blackboard. So under template and materials, you'll go to there. You're going to see the APSL helpful hints. The Absol Helpful Hints is something that we have elaborated on this year. So it has a lot more information that it has ever had before. This is task 1, prompt 1. So here's an example of the Absol that you are going to do. Oh, sorry, I'm too far down. Let me scroll back up here. Oh, sorry, I'm in the app tail. I downloaded the wrong one. This is so easy to do. I promise you. This is you'll find this is very easy to do. In submitting and everything else. And you may submit something to the wrong place and I may not even catch it just because it is so easy to do. But the Absol template and materials, then you'll go to Absol Helpful Hints. And of course that has to download. Then you have to upload that. And that takes just a second, especially when you're on Zoom. And then you'll see, like, here's an example of a school profile. You all did a good job with your school profiles. Then here's an example of your PLC research. Remember that you did have to have at least 3 references and one of them had to be DeFore. And then your selection of your PLC, and that is there, and elaborating on how you selected and who you selected and why you selected them. And then your meeting. And remember, in that meeting, you want to make sure that you have elaborated on how your vision and mission and your norms and what those are, and how those align with the vision and the mission of your school and your district. And then in the part 2, the selection part, you want to go ahead and add that you did get permission from your school administrator and add that as Appendix A. And while we are talking about all those lovely things, let's just roll on down here for just a minute. And let's just go to this. So your reference section is going to, if I can find a reference section. Oh, I don't have a reference section in there. Sorry, hold on. That's going to be under the sample, no doubt. The reference section is going to be after the task 5. So it's going to be at the end of your paper. Your reference section will be at the end of your paper. And the reference section, you're going to go in where it says references, and you're going to insert a page break so that reference section always stays at the top of a page. So when you go to insert page break in Word, then you highlight where you want the page break. And then that is going to give you, like, the reference section will always be at the top of a page. And so that is important. Here's a reference for you, a sample Absol for you right here. So we're going to go down to references after task 5, because there are 5 tasks in the Absol. So references is centered. You'll insert a page break so that it starts there. And please note that the entire reference section is double spaced, and it does have the hanging indent that we showed you in the library section that you can go back and watch. Then your appendices, at the top of each appendix, you're going to insert a page break so that each of them begins at the top of a page. So here's Appendix A, and it starts at the top of a page. Appendix B, it starts at the top of a page. Now, this did have an email in it, just so you know. It did have it. I took it out because it was identifying. So I took that out. Appendix B starts at the top of a page, and you'll just see so forth. Like, they inserted, you just go in your Word document to insert page break, and it'll let you insert the page break, so that regardless of what you do in the document, that always starts at the top of a page. So you're going to want to do that as well. So that's there for you too. So I'm back to the PowerPoint. If you can't see it, please unmute and let me know. Zoom groups, we reestablished those. I sent an email. I think you're all doing good with those. And so keep on with your Zoom groups, because you're going to become best friends this semester and maybe throughout the whole course. Peer reviews, you're doing a great job so far on your peer reviews. You're being respectful and candid, and you're being specific. You're telling the great things that you're seeing, and you're telling things that, hey, I was left wondering this. So that is good constructive feedback. And remember, this is not personal. This helps you learn because you're watching other people's work. And in addition to that, it's just giving you experience with giving adults feedback, which is very, very important as a school leader. We're asking that it be provided by class time on Tuesday evenings so that it can be timely, because timely feedback is very, very important. So you have, over the last couple of weeks, what you have done is you have researched PLCs, you've selected your PLC members, you led your first PLC meeting, you've established norms for your PLC, and you've set the groundwork for your APSL product. So now that is APSL Task 1. You're all well on your way. So let's talk about APSL Task 2, unless anyone has a question about Task 1 at this time. I don't hear anything. Okay. So this week you're gonna turn in your final task 1, and then you're gonna do your task 2. And task 1 had 1 prompt. Task 2 has 2 prompts. So let's start with task 2, prompt 1. And so this is due no later than Sunday the 30th at 9 o'clock. So this says, in first person active narrative form, you're going to describe your data collection and presentation process central to the PLC's effort to identify a most pressing need. So you're going to look at data to try to determine, what's going on here? What is a need in our school, and what do we need to address? You need to describe this process from the perspective of a leader. Remember, you are learning to be a school administrator. So we want you to get out of that mindset of being a teacher, and you are now going to be a school leader. So you need to think about communication, delegating responsibilities, and the rationale behind collaborative decisions. We want you to learn about all these skills that come together to create an effective school leader. Now, you can create a video clip of this meeting if you want to. You don't have to. Certainly, an agenda of some sort would be great, a PowerPoint of the meeting, whatever. But anything that you can do to go to show that this meeting is happening and that you're really following this process will help enhance this procedure for you. Nairi, do you have a question?
I do. I know we can do the link and we have to put it in YouTube. Does it work with WebEx? Because we do our meetings on WebEx, not Zoom.
I don't know about WebEx. We haven't tried that. Dr. Crawford, have you had any experience with WebEx?
Yes. I think it'll be fine. If you're
Okay.
if you're under trouble, let one of us know.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks. So you have in prompt 1, you're going to describe and evidence data collection strategies and criteria in the process of identifying your most pressing need. So you are going to lead a meeting where you have data that is analyzed and discussed, and you're going to conclude with an agreement in a specific need. So you're going to talk about, you have 4 headings in task 2, prompt 1. So when you go to your APSL template, and if you can't see it, let me know. When you go to your APSL template, in prompt 1, you have 4 headings. Now, these are the only 4 headings you have. Data collection, what data did I collect and how did I get it? The criteria and process for identifying the most pressing needs, and how do we look at this data to determine what our need is? The collaborative data analysis, how did you work with your PLC to analyze the data? And then the most pressing need. And that is important to explicitly state. So the first part is your data collection strategies. Now, what kind of data can we collect? EVOS, which just came out this weekend, common formative assessments, any kind of benchmark tests that you take. Let's just say MC check-ins, mini EOGs you may give, anything that you may give in your school. any kind of progress monitoring, like for MTSS, summative assessments, iReady, EOGs. You can look at this year's data and you can look at previous year's data. You can look at those historical data and trends. That is an important thing to do, to look at the big picture trends. CTE, post-assessment, work keys test, SAT, ACTs. And talk about in this part, where did you get the data from? Who helped you get this? Did you delegate this to some of your PLC members? Did you go to your assistant principal, your testing coordinator, your counselor, your data manager? Where did you get this? So elaborate on all that in your narrative in task 2, prompt 1. And then the criteria and process for identifying the most pressing need, which is task 2, prompt 1. This is the second heading under there. And that is going to be a written plan that descriptively explains how you and your PLC team that you're leading worked collaboratively to develop a plan for identifying the most pressing need. So you want to talk about how you work with others to determine the best way to present this data to the PLC. What data trends did you highlight when you presented to the PLC? How did you encourage your PLC to dive deeper into subgroups and subject areas? And what areas, subject groups, subject areas did your PLC want to explore for possible student improvement? And then the third part of task 2, prompt 1 is that you will lead your PLC in taking the data you have collected and using your criteria and processes for identifying your most pressing need. And you're going to analyze this data. So you're going to look with your PLC, you're going to take all the data you've collected and you're going to dissect it. You're going to talk about what do you see? What are the strengths? What are areas of concern that you may have? Now use all the data that you have, because one piece of data is just really not going to tell the whole story. But use any pieces of data you have, whether that's quantitative numbers or qualitative stories. Remember that each data source is a piece of a bigger puzzle, and you need all those puzzle pieces to get that complete picture. And then in the last heading under task 2, prompt 1, which is your most pressing need, you and your PLC team that you're leading will collaboratively come to a consensus based on that data to determine that most pressing need. So you're going to want to write about that most pressing need, write about how you and your team have determined that this is the most pressing need. And this is where you're going to move forward to try to make a difference in student learning. Now, these words are important for you to use in this fourth prompt under task 2, prompt 1. And your last sentence of that paragraph needs to say, based on our collaborative data analysis, the PLC determined that our most pressing need is whatever, because of whatever. And then make sure that that most pressing need is something that can be measured with a test score. So that is very important. So that part in the highlighted, that needs to be the last sentence I read. And we need to know that that is something that can be measured with a test score. So that's task 2, prompt 1. Any questions about task 2, prompt 1? In task 2, prompt 1, you have those 4 headings that we just discussed. Any questions?
I have a question in general about our narrative. If we have already introduced the acronym and in task 1, does that continue on into task 2? Do we need
Yes,
to read?
like the
Okay.
PLC acronym
Yeah.
or your school's acronym or whatever. Yes.
Okay.
It sure does. Because at the end of this process, all 5 tasks come together into one document.
Okay.
It sure does. Thanks for asking that question.
I have a question.
Okay,
My
Steve.
My principal said that she wanted me to focus primarily on teachers' working conditions and how they have effect on student learning. Is that okay?
So one of the data collection strategies that you'll have is the teacher working conditions survey. And what level are you at?
Elementary.
So you're going to have EOG scores, right?
Hmm.
And so I think you can look at the teacher working condition survey. You can look at your EOG scores. I think that I don't know.
She wants my focus to be the teacher's working conditions.
Okay, so this is going to be about student learning, and I'm just trying to think off the cuff here, Stephen. So I think that you can look at that, and I think that you can use that as a part of your data collection. But then I think that you need to say that, you know, whatever it comes out to be, let's just say it comes out to be certain standards in math. Let's just say that your data are low in math in this grade and in these standards. Okay. Then I think that in the APTEL, you can tie that in with teacher efficacy. Dr. Crawford, what do you think? I think for this, I think for the APSL, you're going to have to find out what the student learning gap is. Where are we missing something in student learning?
Right, and
And
again,
then
the
what
big,
can we do to help that?
right, the big thing is to get as narrow as possible. You don't want to take on something too broad or too nebulous. So you're in elementary school, so you wouldn't say something like, you know, we want to increase DIBEL scores. That's way too big and too nebulous. You want to get down, and I wrote an example, you know, to say, you know, we focused in on second grade DIBEL scores because 75% of the students miss the mid-year benchmark score. That makes perfect sense because those kids were in kindergarten in March of 2019. Furthermore, we looked at the individual scores, we looked at the PSF data, and we found that of those 75%, nearly 90% missed the mark in phonemic segmentation. So in order to get these kids to be able to be proficient and accurate readers and to develop a good solid skill set, our team decided that we are going to focus in on phonemic segmentation in second grade between now and the next 12 weeks when we start end of year assessments, and we want to move that 25% to 60%.
And Stephen, what else I would say is that if you got a team of teachers together and had them analyze the data, and you got them to start working collaboratively and have input and leadership into solving a problem, that is going to increase the teacher working conditions survey because they're going to feel like they are empowered and they have leadership.
So I told her that that everything had to be more academia based versus the teaching working conditions. But I told her I will ask just to make sure. And so she said that if you guys said that it had to be more academic based for me to focus on math. So that works.
Well, that's fine. And you can pull the math data, but what I would offer is that if you do that and you bring them together to work on that and you give them the leadership and trying to say, this is a problem and this is how we want to solve this problem, I think she's going to see an increase in the teacher's working conditions survey results as a result of that.
Okay.
And Stephen, I'll tell you one more thing that I learned from a friend about 10 years ago. If you sit down and go over that teacher's working conditions survey before they take it, and you just say, this is what we're doing for this, and this is what we're doing for this, and this is out of my hands, and don't mark me down for this because I don't have any control over this, you're going to get a better survey. I'm just going to tell you.
That was always the goal.
I'm just going to tell you. Yep. Just, you know, between us here.
I got you.
That's right. Thanks for that. All right. So then in task 2, prompt 2, you're going to graphically represent your data that you talked about in task 2, prompt 1. Now, remember that any of our graphs, charts, and tables, and these are plural, so you're going to have many more than one. Now, these are going to be represented as figures, so let's not forget that. So you want to show us in task 2, prompt 2, what you talked about in task 2, prompt 1. So you're really telling the same story, but in 2 different ways. You're going to be showing us what you talked about in task 2, prompt 1 in a picture. So here's an example. Here was someone's figure 3, and they had pulled up their integrate. They had talked about in task 2, prompt 1 about their integrated math proficiency data. And so then in task 2, prompt 2, they showed us, and this was their third figure because it was the third figure of their paper. And it says this compares this school's proficiency to the district and to the state. Now, one thing that's missing right here, this should say note, N-O-T-E, in italics with a period after it, and have a little brief discussion underneath it. So you're going to have figure, whatever number it is, in bold. Underneath there, a figure title is going to be in italics, and it does not have to be that long, probably too long. And then right here, this should have said note, and then a little note right there describing that. If you go to the Apsel sample, and if you can't see this, let me know, please, and thank you, and I'll go out from my Zoom and go back in, or from my share and go back in. But in task 2, you'll see where the data collection strategies have been thoroughly explained, the criteria and process for identifying the most pressing need. There are 4 sections in here, right? And then the most pressing need, keep in mind. And remember, this person said, based on our collaborative data analysis, our PLC determined our most pressing need. And as Dr. Crawford said a minute ago, don't make it broad, make it specific. You see that they have specific science standards that they are going to teach right there. Reteach, there it is. And then prompt 2, there they have figure 1, and that is a summary from the school report card and a note telling about that. Figure 2, another summary with a note. Figure 3 from the school report card, note. Figure 4, everything they talked about is right here. So you see all these figures. They've got figure 5, figure 6, lots of figures in task 2, prompt 2. Everything you talked about, figure 7. These are school net scores right here. So these are all things that we have used to demonstrate that this is our most pressing need. Figure 9, we have EVOS. So we had EOG, we had SchoolNet, we had EVOS. And so this just went on and on and on. And then this person said, after discussing all the data points, we decided our most pressing need. They reiterated at the end of task 2, even prompt 2, even though they had already done it at the end of prompt 1, that our most pressing need is, this is what our need is. And so they continue to share this most pressing need. So this is what you're going to want to do. We just looked at the helpful hints, or we looked at the sample. The helpful hints also has that sample in there. Please keep in mind about APA 7th edition with your charts, tables, and graphs. Everything is labeled as a figure. These do come in sequential order. So the first figure in your paper is figure 1. That's going to be left justified in bold, double space underneath there. In no bold, italics, you're going to have a brief title for the figure. Then you're going to have that image, whether it's a chart, a table, a graph, whatever it is. And then beneath there, left justified in italics, it's going to say note, period, and then no italics. You're going to explain just a little bit about what we see in that figure. Your reference section, we talked about that. And then the last thing being your appendices. And we talked about that as well, and what you need to do for that. So once you've done all that, your task 2 is going to be submitted. You're going to turn that into task 2 for peer and instructor review. You're going to have a new thread. And of course, all that is due on or before January 30th. And the sooner, the better. Any questions about APSL task 1 or task 2? Hearing none, we're going to let Dr. Crawford talk to us a little about data sources and data analysis that may help you with your task 2.
Well, Dr. Hamilton, your slide 21 kind of just stole all my little thunder. My feelings will hurt today, but it's okay. I'm going to be okay.
I'll make it up to you.
I'm going to be okay. But no, I think when you go back to slide 21, this is what I was actually working on did that come up at all? Share screen, there we go. Just a couple of things that I was working on, but again, Dr. Hamilton covered it pretty well. Just focusing on being narrow and specific. And I'd like to, if you would, and again, this is just kind of an overview of how you would address that, getting down to that most pressing need. And I wrote 2 examples, A and B. And if you were giving each other a grade, or if you were giving me as a peer review on A or B, just drop in the chat or unmute yourself and tell me what kind of feedback would you give me if I submitted A, and what kind of feedback would you give me if I submitted B in my paper? And what are the differences between the 2?
For A, I don't feel as though there's enough information. It's really broad, and it's not really clear about where you're speaking about. And if I wasn't in elementary school, how do I know what dibbles are?
Okay. What else in A that I want you to zoom in on, that I want you to avoid as you're writing that particular section of the paper? 2 words.
Is it I determined?
Yup. Yep. One of the things you'll hear Dr. Hamilton and I talk about frequently is sometimes she and I will fight with the evaluators because we're really particular about our scores. We think they get a little unnecessarily nitpicky. And the running joke between us is they're going to find some missing professors at some point on our campus, but I digress. So one of the things you want to do when you get to that section is be specific, and don't just say I did. You really want to make sure that you elaborate and are very specific on the fact that you made this a collaborative effort. So what about B? What type of feedback would you give me for if it was if you read B? Anybody?
It's very detail oriented. You talk about like you all talked about why the scores may have dropped, because during March 2019 we were all dealing with COVID. I'm sorry, it's a little small for me. Can you make it just a little bit big? Thank you.
Would you consider either A or B a SMART goal?
I think that I think that you could pull a SMART goal out of B. Mostly from reading at the end where it says the most pressing need will be to address PSF skills with second grade students, such that the school can improve from a 25% proficiency to at least a 60% proficient by the conclusion of the end of the year. That's measurable.
Okay.
My
So,
only, oh, I'm sorry.
no, if I go ahead.
I was just gonna say my only concern with percentages and concerning goals is within 12 weeks, the expectation to almost double that percentage. I feel that I don't know, like I think that that's putting quite a timeline on the group to try to implement something in the school. I think it's a lofty goal, but I also would be stressed in the fact that I'm putting a numeric to what my expectation is to see that growth. I would say that the pressing need would be there, but I don't know, to just implement saying, hey, I'm expecting 60% here.
Yeah.
I also think that if I'm looking at it from an administrative point of view, like why 60? You know what I'm saying? Like I think you're kind of like bracketing, setting your limitations, but you're also setting a situation for either to undershoot it or to overshoot it. You're kind of bracketed.
Right. So I literally wrote that between 6:15 and 6:30, just to kind of give you a framework. One of the things that, and first of all, Philip, you were absolutely right, which is why a couple of years ago, here in Guilford County, one of the things that they did was they made all of us go back, and when the ESSER long-term goals came out, they made us all go back and rewrite school improvement plans to address that, because it was not uncommon to see, we're at 15% and our goal is 80% by the end of the year. So, I mean, yeah, we would love to see that. So you are correct. In that instance, I probably wouldn't have gone from 25 to 60. I think maybe more realistic would have been maybe 25 to 30, or even 35. But your point is well taken. I was just looking to write the example so that you had an idea of what you were looking for, how to structure that, how to layer that conversation. And again, the big piece and the B was the fact that the team looked at the data. The team decided that this is what we were going to do, and the team decided this is going to be our goal for the next 12 weeks. So you were absolutely correct, sir.
And the only other thing that I would add is I think when you added that the most senior member gave you, that supplemented and I think defended or justified your selection in task one, because you were able to say that this member, and I bet if we went back to task one and looked at your PLC selection, Miss Smith has some type of dynamic in the school. We would look at what she was doing and stuff like that. So mentioning her later in the section, it would kind of justify why you selected your team. And it shows that you were, I guess, you took empirical data and said, okay, this is why this person brings this strength to my team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Hamilton?
What I'd like to add is I love what Dr. Crawford just did tonight, giving you 2 examples and having you to compare and contrast and identify similarities and differences. And in your AppTel, you'll learn that that's Marzano's highest yield teaching strategy, identifying similarities and differences. And Dr. Crawford just exemplified that at an expert level. So very good, Dr. Crawford. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That was fabulous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's go back to this, and we're going to go back to our PowerPoint. And if for some reason you cannot see it, please let me know.
What's up?
Yes. What is it?
No, you're up.
Okay, so we're going to look ahead. Please remember your APA formatting. First time acronyms. If you're going to use something more than 3 times, you may use an acronym. So the first time you use it, Masonboro Elementary School, in parentheses, MES, and use MES from then on. Your references and citations, short and long quotations. Again, the fewer quotations, the better. That's just better not to use direct quotes. Hanging indents. Appendices come after the references. Everything comes in order, whether it's figures, 1, 2, 3, 4, appendices, everything comes in order. Your in-text citations as they come, but then in the reference section is alphabetized. You are talking in first person active. If you have any issue with that, Dr. Crawford is your expert on that. There's only 1 period after a punctuation in APA 7th. Anything that you put in there as a chart or graph or anything is going to be labeled as a figure. Please remember that numbers 0 through 9 are in word form. All other numbers can be numerical, and you are never going to start or end a sentence with a numeral. And if you do, that has to be in word form.
And if you didn't know, the word internet is capitalized.
Thank you. Very good. And so this week, week 3, your task 1 revisions are due. And if we have given you revisions on your task 1 as the instructors, those are expected to be made. Those are not optional. You can consider your peer review revisions optional, but the ones I've seen so far have been good. So that's good. And I would highly recommend those. Your peer reviews, you have to review 2 of your peers, and remember you'll upload that in 4 places. And you'll attach each peers to their thread in the discussion board, and then you will upload both of your peer reviews in the APSL peer review Dropbox so that you can receive grades. Those were due this evening, so you should have 301 points at this time. Your APSL task 2 is due to the discussion board for peer instructor review no later than Sunday at 9. The earlier, the better. Make sure that you have contacted your Zoom team and Zoom groups, and I have been so impressed with all of you, especially when your Zoom groups didn't necessarily come through and you were emailing and saying, hello, have not heard from you. So that has been very impressive with your leadership abilities. Next week is already week 4. And in week 4, your APSL task 2 revisions will be in, and your task 3 draft will be in, and your peer reviews are due on February 1st. We are having a coaching session this Thursday evening, January 27th. So we look forward to seeing you there. And we do have our recurring link there. So in the chat, right quick, what's due Sunday night before 9 o'clock? Let me see it in the chat. What's due Sunday night before 9 o'clock? Looking in the chat. If I can get it to open, can't get it to open. Yes, task 2 draft, task 2 draft. What else is due besides task 2 draft? What about task 1? Task 1 what? Task 1 revisions final. That's right. Task 1 revisions final. That's right. What was due before class tonight? And if you haven't turned it in, you can go ahead and turn it in. Of course, we want you to peer reviews. That's right. Those go in 4 places. You're going to give each of your peers a review attached to theirs in their discussion thread so they can see what you say. And then you also upload them into the peer review Dropbox so that you can get grades for that as well. Do we have a coaching session this Thursday at 7? Yes or no? That's an easy one. Yes or no? Coaching session? Yes, we do. So excited. And last but not least, when do you call Dr. Crawford or myself? Waiting. Anyone? Ferris Bueller? Anyone? Anytime. That's right. Anytime you need us. That's right. Dr. Crawford? Is he still? Oh, there he is. Benediction, Dr. Crawford.
You guys are going to be okay. Have a good rest of the night.
Bye. Thank you all so much. Good night. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for choosing Gardner Webb.